My name is Serafina Martinez, and at 28, I discovered my entire family had been lying to me for years. The moment my sister dismissed me as just staff at her dream wedding, held at what she thought was some random hotel, everything changed. What she did not know was that I owned the entire property, along with a business empire worth millions. But family betrayal runs deeper than money, and some truths can destroy everything you thought you knew about blood loyalty forever. Before we dive into this wild family revenge story that will leave you questioning everything about loyalty and justice, let me know where you are watching from in the comments below. If you are ready for a tale of shocking family secrets, ultimate karma, and the sweetest revenge ever served, hit that like button and subscribe because you will not want to miss how this unfolds. Trust me, the ending will blow your mind, and you will be talking about this story for weeks. Growing up in San Diego, I was always the invisible Martinez sister. While my older sister Isabella commanded every room with her stunning looks and charming personality, I buried myself in business books and entrepreneurship courses. Our parents owned a small catering company, and everyone assumed Isabella would inherit the family legacy while I would remain her supporting cast forever. That assumption could not have been more wrong. While Isabella spent her 20s bouncing between modeling gigs and social media influencing, I quietly built an empire. It started with a small food truck during college, funded by my summer job savings and student loans. Within 2 years, I had expanded to 3 trucks. By 25, I owned a successful restaurant chain called Serafina's Kitchen, known for authentic Mexican-American fusion cuisine. But my real breakthrough came when I purchased the Grandview Estate Hotel. This was not just any property, it was a stunning Spanish colonial mansion turned luxury boutique hotel, complete with manicured gardens, an infinity pool, and breathtaking ocean views. The previous owner was desperate to sell due to mounting debts, and I managed to acquire it for a fraction of its actual value through a silent auction. The hotel became my crown jewel, generating millions annually through weddings, corporate events, and luxury accommodations. I kept my ownership completely private, operating through an LLC called Golden Coast Hospitality. Not even my family knew about my success. They still saw me as their quiet, bookish daughter who helped with catering orders and kept the family books balanced. This secrecy was intentional. I had learned early that money changes family dynamics, and I wanted to observe how people truly felt about me without the influence of wealth. Isabella often made snide comments about my simple life and questioned why I had never gotten married or moved out of my modest apartment. She had no idea that apartment was just one of my properties, chosen specifically for its understated appearance. The irony deepened when Isabella announced her engagement to Marcus Whitfield, a trust fund baby whose family owned several tech companies. She bragged constantly about how she had landed someone from real wealth, unlike the rest of us middle-class nobodies. The wedding planning began immediately, and Isabella demanded everything be absolutely perfect for her once-in-a-lifetime fairy tale. "I want the most exclusive venue possible," she declared during a family dinner. "Somewhere that screams luxury and sophistication. I cannot have my wedding somewhere cheap or ordinary." Our mother suggested several local venues, but Isabella dismissed them all as too basic or not exclusive enough. That was when our cousin Maria mentioned the Grandview Estate Hotel. "It is supposed to be incredibly exclusive," Maria said. "I heard they only book like 12 weddings per year, and the waiting list is insane. The owner is super mysterious, nobody even knows who runs the place." Isabella's eyes lit up like she had discovered buried treasure. "That sounds perfect. How do I book it?" I sat at that dinner table, listening to my sister obsess over my own property, feeling a mixture of amusement and growing unease. When she asked if I could use my catering connections to help her get a meeting with the hotel management, I almost laughed out loud. "I might be able to make some calls," I said carefully. The next week, I arranged for Isabella to tour the property. I watched through security cameras as she walked through my hotel, gushing about the incredible taste and obvious wealth of whoever owned it. She kept asking the manager, David, about the mysterious owner. "The owner values privacy," David explained professionally. But they have ensured every detail of this property reflects their commitment to excellence. Isabella booked her wedding immediately, signing a contract worth $50,000 without even blinking. She bragged to everyone about securing the most exclusive venue in the city, claiming she had special connections that helped her get the booking. But the real betrayal came during the wedding planning process. Isabella insisted on being heavily involved in every vendor selection, and that included pushing our parents' catering company for the food service. When the hotel management suggested using their preferred catering partners, Isabella threw a fit. "My family owns a catering business," she announced. "They will handle the food, and my sister can help serve. She knows how to stay in the background and not draw attention from the real stars of the day." David called me privately after that meeting. "Ms. Martinez, your sister is requesting that you work as serving staff during her wedding. How would you like me to handle this situation?" I thought about it for a long moment. "Book it exactly as she requested." "And David?" "Make sure you have the sound system ready for any special announcements I might want to make." The real shock came when Isabella started referring to me as the help during family gatherings. She would introduce me to her friends as my sister who works in catering and make jokes about how I would be just part of the staff at her wedding. "Do not embarrass me by trying to socialize with the guests," she warned me the week before the wedding. "You are there to work, not to pretend you belong with people like Marcus's family." Our parents said nothing. They were so thrilled about Isabella marrying into wealth that they ignored her increasingly cruel treatment of me. When I tried to bring up how hurt I felt, our mother dismissed my concerns. "Isabella is just stressed about the wedding," she said. "You know how important this is for her future. Can you not just support your sister during this special time?" That was the moment I realized my family had made their choice. They valued Isabella's social climbing over my feelings, and they were perfectly comfortable watching her humiliate me as long as it served their vision of family success. I spent the final week before the wedding making very specific preparations. I had David coordinate with our head of security to ensure every moment would be recorded in high definition. I also arranged for some special guests to attend. People who would very much enjoy witnessing what was about to unfold. The morning of the wedding, I put on my simple black serving uniform and arrived at my own hotel as just staff. Isabella looked stunning in her designer gown, completely in her element as she directed everyone around like a queen commanding her subjects. She barely acknowledged me except to bark orders about the catering setup. "Make sure you stay in the kitchen unless you are serving," she snapped. "And remember, you are representing our family business today, so do not do anything to embarrass us." I smiled and nodded, knowing that by the end of the day, the only person who would be embarrassed was her. The wedding ceremony was flawless, I had to admit. Isabella looked radiant as she exchanged vows with Marcus beneath the rose-covered archway I had personally designed when I renovated the hotel gardens. The 200 guests were appropriately awed by the elegance of the venue, and I caught several conversations about how exclusive and expensive this place must be. During the cocktail hour, I moved seamlessly between my roles. To the guests, I was invisible serving staff, refilling champagne glasses and clearing appetizer plates. To my hotel managers, I was the owner conducting a final inspection of our most important event of the season. The duality felt surreal, but it also crystallized something important. I had spent years building myself into someone worthy of respect, while Isabella had spent those same years assuming she deserved respect simply for existing. The moment that changed everything happened during the reception dinner. Isabella had insisted on giving a speech before the main course, and she used the opportunity to paint herself as the family's success story. "I want to thank everyone who made this magical day possible," she began, her voice carrying across the elegant ballroom through my top-tier sound system. "When I first saw this incredible venue, I knew it was perfect for the wedding Marcus and I deserved. It takes real connections and persistence to book somewhere this exclusive." She paused for applause, clearly enjoying the attention. Then her gaze landed on me as I stood near the kitchen doors, and her expression shifted to something darker. Of course, I also want to acknowledge the hardworking staff who made tonight possible, she continued, her tone becoming condescending. Including my own sister, who is here tonight as part of the catering team. It means so much to have family willing to work behind the scenes to make your dreams come true. The room fell silent. I felt the weight of 200 pairs of eyes turning toward me, and I saw the mixture of pity and secondhand embarrassment on their faces. Some of Marcus's family members looked genuinely shocked that a bride would publicly humiliate her own sister at her wedding. But Isabella was not finished. I hope this inspires everyone here to remember that some people are destined for greatness, while others are meant to support that greatness from behind the scenes. It is just the natural order of things. That was the moment my transformation from victim to victor began. Standing there in my simple black uniform, publicly humiliated by my own sister in my own hotel, I felt something cold and powerful settle in my chest. Not anger, anger was too hot, too uncontrolled for what I needed to do. This was clarity, pure and crystalline. I caught David's eye across the room and gave him a barely perceptible nod. He immediately began moving toward the sound booth. Isabella had no idea what was coming, but she was about to learn a lesson about assumptions that would haunt her forever. I walked calmly to the center of the ballroom, my heels clicking against the marble floor I had personally selected 3 years ago. The guests watched in confusion as a member of the serving staff approached the bride's table. "Isabella," I said clearly, my voice carrying without the microphone. "I have an announcement to make." My sister's face flushed with embarrassment. "Sarah, what are you doing? Get back to the kitchen right now. You are embarrassing yourself." "Actually," I replied, accepting the wireless microphone David handed me, "I think you are the one who should be embarrassed." The room was dead silent now. Marcus looked between us in confusion, while our parents appeared frozen in horror. They could sense something momentous was happening but had no framework to understand what. "Ladies and gentlemen," I began, my voice now amplified throughout the ballroom, "I need to make a correction to something the bride said earlier. She mentioned having special connections that helped her book this exclusive venue." Isabella's face was turning red. "Sarah, sit down immediately. You are humiliating our entire family." I smiled at her, and it was not a kind expression. "You are absolutely right that someone in our family has special connections to this hotel. You are just wrong about who that person is." I gestured to David, who began moving to the main lighting controls. "David, would you please turn on the main spotlight and adjust the room lighting for a special presentation?" The ballroom transformed as dramatic lighting highlighted the ornate details I had spent months perfecting during the renovation. The crystal chandeliers I had imported from Italy caught the light magnificently, and the gold leaf accents I had personally overseen gleamed against the dark wood paneling. "The connections Isabella mentioned are indeed very real," I continued, walking slowly around the ballroom as I spoke. "In fact, the person who helped her book this venue tonight is standing right here in this room." The guests were leaning forward now, completely captivated by this unexpected drama. Some were already pulling out their phones to record whatever was happening. "You see, 3 years ago, I purchased this property when the previous owner fell into financial trouble. I renovated every inch of it, from the kitchen where your incredible dinner was prepared tonight, to the bridal suite where Isabella got ready this morning." I paused at the head table, looking directly at my sister. Her face had gone from red to completely white, and she was gripping Marcus's hand so tightly her knuckles were bloodless. "The Grandview Estate Hotel is not just where Isabella chose to have her wedding," I said clearly. "It is my hotel. I own this entire property, along with the restaurant chain that catered tonight's dinner, and several other businesses that apparently no one in my family bothered to learn about." The silence that followed was deafening. I could hear the gentle splash of the fountain outside and the distant sound of waves hitting the cliffs below my hotel. Marcus was staring at me like I had just announced I was from another planet. "That means," I continued, letting each word sink in, "that when Isabella called me just staff tonight, she was actually insulting the owner of the venue where she is celebrating what she called the most important day of her life. Isabella finally found her voice. That is impossible. You work for Mom and Dad's catering company. You live in that tiny apartment. You drive a Honda Civic. You cannot possibly own all this. I pulled out my phone and handed it to David. Would you please display my property management app on the main screen? The hotel's large presentation screen, normally used for wedding photo slideshows, lit up with my business dashboard. Every guest in the room could see the real-time revenue numbers, property values, and management controls for my entire business empire. The Honda Civic is because I prefer reliable transportation over flashy displays, I said. The apartment is because I value substance over appearances. And the catering work? I do that because I love our family business and wanted to support it, even though I never needed the income. The numbers on the screen were undeniable. My hotel alone was worth $12 million, and the revenue figures showed exactly how much money Isabella had spent tonight to rent her own sister's property for her dream wedding. Marcus was the first to break the silence. You have got to be kidding me. The aftermath of my revelation was immediate and devastating. Isabella sat frozen in her designer chair, staring at the financial dashboard displaying my net worth while 200 guests processed the fact that they had just witnessed one of the most epic family revenge moments in wedding history. This has to be some kind of joke, Isabella whispered, but her voice carried through the silent ballroom thanks to my premium sound system. You cannot seriously be telling me that you own all of this. I walked over to the main control panel that David had discreetly revealed behind one of the decorative panels. With a few touches, I adjusted the ballroom lighting from romantic amber to bright white, changed the temperature setting, and switched the background music from classical to complete silence. Every guest watched me operate controls that only the property owner would have access to. Would you like me to demonstrate further? I asked pleasantly. I could show you the security footage of your venue tour last month, where you spent 20 minutes telling my staff how tacky your sister's life choices were, or perhaps you would prefer to see the recording of your planning meeting where you insisted I work as serving staff because I know my place in the family hierarchy. The large screen switched to security footage of Isabella during her initial venue tour. The audio was crystal clear as her voice filled the ballroom. My sister has never amounted to much. She is sweet, but she has no ambition. It will actually be good for her to work this event. Maybe she will see what real success looks like and finally get motivated to improve her life. Several guests gasped audibly. Marcus's mother, a dignified woman in her 60s who had been polite but distant to my family all evening, was shaking her head in obvious disgust. Isabella Rose Martinez, our mother, finally spoke, her voice shaking with what I hoped was shame but might have been anger. What have you done? But Isabella was not ready to accept defeat. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the marble floor. Even if this is true, even if you somehow managed to hide all of this from us, you are still my sister. Family does not humiliate family like this. You are ruining my wedding day. The audacity was breathtaking. I had spent the entire evening being publicly dismissed and belittled, but somehow I was the one ruining her day by revealing the truth about my accomplishments. You are absolutely right that family should not humiliate family, I replied calmly. Which makes your behavior tonight particularly interesting. I signaled to David again, and the screen displayed a compilation of text messages Isabella had sent to various friends and relatives over the past month. Each message was more cruel than the last. Can you believe my sister is going to be working at my wedding? At least she will finally be useful for something. I feel bad for Sarah sometimes, but honestly, some people are just meant to be followers. She has never had the drive to make something of herself. Marcus's family is going to think our family is so low class when they see my sister serving drinks, but what choice do I have? Someone needs to keep her busy so she does not try to network with important people. The messages painted a clear picture of calculated cruelty, not wedding stress or momentary thoughtlessness. Isabella had been systematically degrading me to anyone who would listen, using my supposed failures to elevate her own status in social situations. Marcus finally stood up, his face pale. Isabella, what the hell is wrong with you? How could you treat your own sister like this? She brought this on herself, Isabella snapped, her composure completely shattered now. If she had told us about her little business ventures instead of pretending to be poor, none of this would have happened. My little business ventures? I repeated, gesturing toward the screen that still displayed my company's financial portfolio. Isabella, my little business ventures generate more revenue in a month than you have earned in your entire life. And I kept them private because I wanted to see how my family really felt about me without money influencing their judgment. The room was beginning to buzz with conversation as guests processed what they were witnessing. I could hear fragments of shocked commentary. Did she really call her sister just staff at her own hotel? And I cannot believe someone would humiliate their family like that. Marcus's father, a stern man who had been quietly observing the entire evening, stood and approached our table. Young lady, he said, addressing me directly, I owe you an apology. When Isabella told us you worked in catering, we made assumptions about your family's social standing. It is clear now that you have achieved remarkable success through your own efforts, and you deserve recognition for that accomplishment. He turned to Isabella with an expression that could freeze fire. As for you, this behavior is absolutely unacceptable. The way you have spoken about your sister tonight is disgraceful, and frankly, it raises serious questions about your character. Isabella's face crumpled as she realized she was losing not just the argument, but potentially her new husband's family support. Marcus, you have to understand, I never meant for things to go this far. I was just trying to help Sarah stay humble and not get above herself. Help me stay humble? I laughed, and there was no humor in it. Isabella, I have been paying for our parents' mortgage for the past 2 years because their catering business was struggling. I have been anonymously funding your shopping trips and lifestyle for months through money I give to mom and dad, which they pass along to you. I have been supporting this entire family while you called me a failure behind my back. Our parents looked stricken. Dad's face had gone completely white, while Mom was openly crying now. They were beginning to understand the full scope of what had been happening under their own roof. I did not know, Mom whispered. Sarah, honey, I had no idea you were doing all of that for us. I know you did not know, I replied gently. I never told you because I wanted to help without making anyone feel obligated or uncomfortable. But Isabella's behavior tonight has shown me something important about how my generosity has been interpreted by at least one member of this family. The wedding photographer, who had been capturing everything with professional discretion, approached me hesitantly. Ma'am, I just want to confirm, should I be documenting this entire conversation for the wedding album? Isabella practically shrieked. No. Delete everything from the last 20 minutes. This is not part of my wedding day. I looked at the photographer calmly. Actually, please continue documenting everything. And make sure you capture the expressions on everyone's faces. I think this will be a very memorable evening for everyone involved. Marcus was staring at his new wife like he was seeing her for the first time. Isabella, I need to understand something. If your sister has been supporting your family financially, and you knew she was successful enough to help with your parents' mortgage, why did you insist on treating her like hired help tonight? Isabella's mouth opened and closed several times before she managed to speak. I did not know she was supporting us. I thought Mom and Dad were just doing better with their business. But even if you thought she was just a caterer, Marcus pressed, why would that justify the way you spoke about her? Why would any job make someone deserve to be humiliated at a family wedding? It was a fair question, and Isabella clearly had no good answer. The fundamental issue was not about money or business success, it was about basic human decency and how she viewed people she considered beneath her social aspirations. I think, said Marcus's mother quietly, we need to have a serious conversation about what kind of family we are joining through this marriage. Isabella looked around the ballroom desperately, perhaps hoping someone would come to her defense or offer her a way to salvage the situation. But the damage was too extensive, and the evidence too overwhelming. The revenge was working better than I had ever imagined, but I was not finished yet. The real climax was still coming, and Isabella had no idea how much worse things were about to get for her. Are you ready to see how this family drama reaches its explosive peak? Because what happens next will change everything for Isabella, and the justice that follows is absolutely incredible. Make sure you are subscribed because the next part will show you the most satisfying takedown you have ever seen. I walked back to the center of the ballroom, knowing this was my moment to deliver the final blow that would complete Isabella's humiliation and ensure she understood the true cost of her cruelty. Before we continue with the evening, I announced, my voice steady and clear, I think our guests deserve to know the complete truth about what happened here tonight, because this story is about more than just a family disagreement. I gestured to David, who began setting up a presentation I had prepared weeks in advance, just in case this moment ever came. You see, when Isabella booked this venue, she signed a very specific contract. That contract includes a morality clause that protects my staff from harassment, discrimination, or hostile behavior from clients. Tonight, my sister violated that contract in multiple ways. The screen displayed Isabella's signed contract, with the relevant sections highlighted in red. The legal language was clear. Any client who created a hostile work environment or engaged in discriminatory behavior towards staff could face immediate contract termination and forfeiture of all payments. According to the terms Isabella agreed to, her treatment of staff tonight, specifically referring to me as just staff in a derogatory manner and making disparaging comments about my worth as a person, constitutes a material breach of our agreement. Isabella's face went from white to green. You cannot be serious. You cannot use legal technicalities against your own sister. I am absolutely serious, I replied. And as the property owner, I am well within my rights to terminate this event immediately and ask all guests to leave the premises. The ballroom erupted in shocked murmurs. Marcus grabbed Isabella's arm. Please tell me you are not about to kick us out of our own wedding reception. I let the tension build for a long moment, watching Isabella's panic grow as she realized I held complete control over her perfect day. Then I smiled, not cruelly, but with genuine satisfaction. However, I am not going to do that. Do you know why? Because unlike some people in this room, I actually care about family, even when that family has treated me terribly. I am going to let this reception continue, but only after we establish some new ground rules. I pulled out a document that David handed me, a new contract I had prepared that morning, anticipating this exact scenario. Isabella, you have two choices. You can sign this amended agreement acknowledging your behavior tonight and committing to public apology and restitution, or you can have your wedding reception terminated immediately and forfeit the $50,000 you paid for this venue. The amended contract was displayed on the screen for everyone to see. It required Isabella to publicly acknowledge my business success, apologize for her treatment of me, and make a substantial donation to a charity supporting women entrepreneurs, using her own money, not her new husband's family wealth. This is insane, Isabella whispered, but she was trapped and she knew it. You are actually going to extort me at my own wedding? I am giving you the opportunity to take responsibility for your actions, I corrected. The same opportunity you never gave me when you decided to humiliate me in front of 200 people. Marcus's father stepped forward again. Young lady, if I may? He addressed me formally. What you are proposing seems more than fair given the circumstances. Isabella should absolutely take responsibility for her behavior tonight. He turned to his new daughter-in-law with obvious disappointment. Isabella, I suggest you sign that document immediately and be grateful that your sister is showing you more grace than you showed her. Our parents finally found their voices. Dad approached Isabella with tears in his eyes. Mija, please just apologize to your sister. This has gone too far. But Isabella was still fighting, even as her world collapsed around her. I refuse to be manipulated like this. Sarah, if you go through with this, you will destroy our family forever. Is your petty revenge really worth that? The accusation hung in the air like a challenge. This was my moment to choose between justice and family peace, between standing up for myself and maintaining the status quo that had allowed Isabella to treat me as lesser for years. I looked around the ballroom at the faces watching me, 200 strangers who had witnessed my humiliation and were now seeing my response. I thought about all the times I had stayed quiet when Isabella made cruel comments, all the ways I had minimized my own success to make her feel better about herself, all the opportunities one had missed to set boundaries because I wanted to keep the peace. Isabella, I said quietly, I have spent years protecting you from the consequences of your choices. I have stayed silent when you belittled me, I have downplayed my success so you would not feel threatened, and I have financially supported this family while you took credit for our parents' improved situation. Tonight, you chose to publicly humiliate me in my own business, in front of people who will remember this moment forever. The person who destroyed our family dynamic was you, the moment you decided I was not worthy of basic respect. I held up the contract. So yes, I am willing to let you face the natural consequences of your actions. Sign this document and take responsibility for your behavior, or lose your dream wedding and $50,000. Your choice. The silence stretched for what felt like hours but was probably only 30 seconds. Isabella looked at Marcus, who was staring at the floor in obvious embarrassment. She looked at her in-laws, who were watching her with undisguised disapproval. She looked at our parents, who were both crying now. Finally, she looked at me, and for the first time all evening, I saw something other than arrogance in her expression. Fear, maybe. Or the beginning of actual understanding about what she had done. If I sign this, she said slowly, will you promise that things can go back to normal between us? It was such a naive question that I almost felt sorry for her. Isabella, things will never go back to normal between us. Tonight changed everything permanently. But if you sign this document and follow through on your commitments, we can potentially build something new that is based on honesty and mutual respect instead of lies and cruelty. She took the pen with shaking hands and signed the contract without reading it thoroughly. As soon as her signature was complete, I signaled to David to restore the romantic lighting and background music. Ladies and gentlemen, I announced to the room, I apologize for the interruption. Please continue enjoying your evening. The bar remains open, dessert will be served shortly, and the dance floor is available for your pleasure. As the guests slowly resumed their conversations and the evening returned to something resembling normal, Isabella remained frozen in her chair, staring at the contract she had just signed. Marcus was speaking quietly with his parents, and I caught fragments of a conversation about character assessment and family values. I had won completely. But victory felt different than I had expected, less triumphant, more hollow. I had proven my point and established my boundaries, but I had also fundamentally altered my relationship with my family forever. The real question was whether that change would ultimately be worth the cost. The remainder of the wedding reception felt like watching a beautiful performance slowly disintegrate. Guests tried to return to celebration mode, but the atmosphere remained charged with awkward energy. Conversations were quieter, laughter seemed forced, and I noticed several people discreetly leaving earlier than they probably would have under normal circumstances. Isabella spent the rest of the evening in a strange state of shock, mechanically going through the motions of being a bride while clearly processing the magnitude of what had just happened. She danced with Marcus for their first dance, but even I could see the tension between them as they moved across the floor of my ballroom. Marcus's family gathered in a corner near the bar, having what appeared to be very serious discussions about the evening's revelations. I overheard Marcus's mother telling someone, "We really need to evaluate what kind of person Isabella actually is, because tonight has been incredibly eye-opening." Our parents approached me during the dessert course, both looking haggard and emotionally drained. "Sarah, honey," Mom began carefully, "we need to talk about everything that came out tonight. I had no idea you had been helping us financially, and I certainly did not know Isabella had been saying those things about you. Dad nodded gravely. We failed you, Mija. We should have noticed how Isabella was treating you, and we should have asked more questions about your life instead of just assuming you were struggling. I felt a mixture of relief and sadness hearing them acknowledge the situation. I never wanted you to feel guilty about accepting my help, I said. I love our family, and I wanted to support you without making it complicated. But Isabella's behavior tonight showed me that staying silent about my success was actually enabling her cruelty. What she did was unforgivable, Dad said firmly. No matter what stress she was under, there is no excuse for humiliating your sister at a public event. Mom was crying again. I keep thinking about all the times she made those little comments about your life, and we just let them slide because we thought it was normal sister teasing. We should have shut that down immediately. The conversation was interrupted by Marcus, who approached our table looking exhausted and frustrated. Excuse me, but I really need to speak with Serafina privately. We stepped out onto the hotel's terrace, where the sound of waves provided a peaceful backdrop that contrasted sharply with the chaos inside. I owe you a huge apology, Marcus said immediately. When Isabella told my family about your background, we made assumptions about your family's social status that were completely wrong. More importantly, I should have spoken up when I heard some of the things she said about you during our engagement. I was surprised by his directness. What kinds of things did she say? Marcus ran his hands through his hair, clearly uncomfortable. She painted you as someone who had never achieved anything significant, someone who was jealous of her success and needed to be managed carefully so you would not embarrass the family. She made it sound like you were emotionally dependent on your parents and had trouble accepting your limitations. The description was so far from reality that it was almost funny. And you believed that? I believed my fiancé, he said simply. But tonight I realized that the person Isabella described does not exist. The woman who owns this incredible property and has built a successful business empire while secretly supporting her family is nothing like the person Isabella claimed you were. He paused, staring out at the ocean. It makes me wonder what else she has lied to me about, or what other assumptions she has made about people based on their perceived social status. That was the moment I realized Isabella's humiliation was going to have consequences far beyond our family dynamics. Her marriage was only hours old, and her husband was already questioning her fundamental character and honesty. Marcus, I said carefully, I do not want my revenge against Isabella to destroy your marriage before it even begins. What happened tonight was between her and me. He shook his head. No, what happened tonight revealed something about Isabella that I needed to know. The woman I married tonight is someone who feels comfortable publicly humiliating her own family members to make herself look better. That is not someone I thought I was choosing as a life partner. We returned to the reception to find Isabella standing near the cake table, looking lost and isolated. Many of the guests had indeed left early, and the remaining crowd felt sparse in the large ballroom. The photographer was packing up his equipment, having gotten all the traditional shots before the evening's drama began. Isabella caught sight of Marcus and me returning together and immediately approached us. What were you two talking about out there? We were discussing tonight's events, Marcus replied coolly. And trying to understand how someone could treat their own family the way you treated Serafina. I already signed her stupid contract and apologized, Isabella snapped, her composure finally cracking completely. What more does everyone want from me? I made a mistake, I admitted it, and now I am being punished by everyone for the rest of my life? The self-pity was stunning. Even after everything that had happened, Isabella still saw herself as the victim of unfair treatment rather than someone who had faced appropriate consequences for cruel behavior. Isabella, I said quietly, the contract you signed requires you to make a public apology acknowledging your behavior and donate $5,000 to Women Entrepreneurs United. You have not done either of those things yet. I am not making some grand public announcement about this, she replied defiantly. I have been humiliated enough for one evening. Marcus stared at his wife in disbelief. You are refusing to honor the agreement you just signed? I signed that under duress, Isabella shot back. Sarah basically extorted me into signing it by threatening to ruin my wedding. That contract is not legally binding. I smiled at her, and this time it was not kind at all. Actually, Isabella, the contract is completely legally binding. You signed it voluntarily in front of 200 witnesses, many of whom recorded the entire interaction on their phones. And since you have now stated your intention to breach that agreement within an hour of signing it, I am activating the penalty clause. I pulled out my phone and sent a quick message to David. Within moments, the large screen lit up again with a new display. The penalty clause from Isabella's amended contract, which specified that failure to comply with the agreed terms would result in immediate public disclosure of all recorded conversations and security footage from her venue tour and wedding planning sessions. You have 24 hours to make your public apology and charity donation, I announced loud enough for the remaining guests to hear. If you fail to comply, every recording of your cruel comments about me and our family will be posted to social media and sent to every guest who attended tonight. Isabella's face went completely white as she realized I held comprehensive documentation of her behavior over the past month. The security footage and recorded conversations would show a pattern of calculated cruelty that would destroy her reputation permanently. Marcus looked between us with growing horror. What exactly did those recordings capture? Everything, I replied simply. Every cruel comment, every dismissive joke, every moment when Isabella thought she could safely mock her family because no one important was listening. Isabella finally understood that she had lost completely and irrevocably. The wedding that was supposed to be her triumph had become her total downfall, and the sister she had tried to humiliate now held the power to destroy her social standing forever. The karma was perfect, but the cost was going to be enormous for everyone involved. 24 hours later, Isabella posted a lengthy public apology on her social media accounts, acknowledging her behavior at the wedding and announcing her $5,000 donation to Women Entrepreneurs United. The post was stilted and clearly written under legal pressure, but it met the technical requirements of our agreement. The response from her social circle was swift and brutal. Comments ranged from shocked disappointment to outright condemnation of her actions. Several mutual friends reached out to me privately, sharing that they had witnessed Isabella's pattern of cruel behavior over the years but had never felt comfortable calling it out directly. Marcus filed for annulment 3 weeks later. According to mutual friends, the wedding night conversation between them lasted until sunrise, during which Isabella apparently revealed additional lies about her past relationships and financial situation. The final straw came when Marcus discovered that Isabella had been planning to use his family's business connections to launch a lifestyle brand based on her image as a successful entrepreneur's wife, without ever mentioning that her own sister was the actual entrepreneur in the family. The annulment proceedings were surprisingly smooth, partly because Marcus's family had documented the wedding night revelations thoroughly, creating an undeniable record of Isabella's deceptive behavior. She moved back in with our parents temporarily, her dreams of wealth and status completely shattered. Our family dynamics shifted dramatically in the months following the wedding. Mom and Dad were horrified by what they had unknowingly enabled, and they worked actively to rebuild their relationship with me while setting firm boundaries with Isabella about her treatment of family members. We realize now that we favored Isabella's dramatics over your quiet achievements, Dad told me during one of our weekly dinners at Serafina's Kitchen flagship restaurant. We mistook her noise for success and your humility for lack of ambition. Mom nodded sadly. I keep thinking about all the times you tried to tell us how Isabella's comments hurt you, and we dismissed your feelings because we thought you were being oversensitive. We failed you as parents, and we are deeply sorry. The healing process was slow but genuine. My parents began taking active interest in my businesses, visiting the hotel regularly and proudly telling their friends about my accomplishments. They also started working with my restaurant chain as preferred catering partners, creating a legitimate business relationship that benefited everyone involved. Isabella's journey was more complicated. The public humiliation and failed marriage forced her to confront some uncomfortable truths about herself and her values. She moved out of our parents' house after 2 months and found work at a nonprofit organization focused on supporting survivors of domestic violence. I needed to understand what it felt like to actually help people instead of just using them, she told me during our first real conversation 6 months after the wedding. I spent so many years thinking that other people existed to make me look good or feel better about myself. I never learned how to value people for who they actually are. We met at a neutral coffee shop, both of us nervous about attempting any kind of reconciliation. Isabella looked different. Tired, but also somehow more real than she had in years. I do not expect you to forgive me, she continued, but I want you to know that I finally understand what I did wrong. It was not just about the wedding night. It was about years of treating you like you were less important than me, less valuable, less worthy of respect. I used you as a stepping stone to make myself feel superior, and that was inexcusable. I studied my sister's face, looking for signs of manipulation or self-serving motivation. What I saw instead was genuine remorse and the beginning of actual self-awareness. I appreciate you saying that, I replied carefully. But understanding what you did wrong is only the first step. The question is what you plan to do differently going forward. I am in therapy, Isabella said. Real therapy, not just complaining about my problems to someone who will agree with me. And I am volunteering 20 hours a week with women who have survived actual trauma, which has given me perspective on how trivial my own problems really were. Over the following year, Isabella slowly began rebuilding her relationship with our family. She never asked for financial help, never tried to leverage my success for her own benefit, and consistently demonstrated that she was learning to value people for their character rather than their social status. The most meaningful moment came when she asked if she could volunteer at one of my restaurant locations during their annual charity drive for homeless veterans. She worked quietly in the kitchen, serving meals and cleaning tables without seeking recognition or praise. I want to learn how to contribute to something bigger than myself, she explained when I asked about her motivation. I spent so many years focused on what other people could do for me that I never developed the skills to actually help anyone else. My business empire continued growing throughout this period. The hotel became even more successful after the wedding story went viral on social media, with couples specifically requesting the venue where that amazing family justice moment had taken place. I expanded the restaurant chain to 5 locations and launched a consulting business helping other women entrepreneurs develop their ventures. But the most important change was in how I approached relationships. The wedding experience taught me that hiding my success to protect other people's feelings actually enabled their worst behavior. I started being open about my achievements, setting clear boundaries about how I expected to be treated, and choosing to invest my time in people who celebrated my victories rather than resenting them. Marcus and I became unlikely friends during his annulment proceedings. He appreciated my honesty about the situation and my willingness to provide evidence when needed for his legal case. We discovered we had similar values about family loyalty and business ethics, and he eventually became a client when his family's company needed event space for corporate functions. You know, he said during one of our business meetings, that wedding might have been the most expensive lesson I ever learned about the importance of really knowing someone before you marry them. But it was probably worth the cost to avoid spending my life with someone who would treat family the way Isabella treated you. The story became something of a legend in our social circles, a cautionary tale about assumptions, family loyalty, and the importance of treating service workers with respect. I received dozens of messages from other business owners who had similar experiences with entitled clients or family members who underestimated their success. Looking back now, I realize that the wedding was not just about revenge or justice. It was about finally demanding the respect I deserved and refusing to participate in a family dynamic that required me to diminish myself so others could feel superior. The most surprising outcome was discovering that the family members who truly loved me were able to grow and change when confronted with the truth about their behavior. The ones who could not change well, they revealed themselves to be people I was better off without in my life. Have you ever had to choose between keeping peace and standing up for yourself when family treated you badly? Sometimes the people who claim to love us the most need the biggest wake-up calls to start treating us with basic respect. Share your thoughts in the comments below about family karma and justice. I read every single one. If this story reminded you that you deserve respect from everyone in your life, smash that like button and subscribe for more real-life drama stories. And please share this with anyone who needs to hear that success is not something to hide from jealous family members. Thank you for listening to my family revenge story, and remember, never let anyone convince you that you should stay small to make them feel big. Life has a way of serving justice to people who mistake kindness for weakness, and sometimes the best revenge is simply letting the truth speak for itself.